So today I'm cutting back my asparagus to make room for this coming year's growth. And I'm going to take you step by step through the process of actually planting and growing asparagus in case that's something you want to do. And with asparagus, there are a few steps, a few hoops you have to jump through, and you got to be a little bit patient. But it's totally worth it because plant them once and they will reward you with asparagus every spring for decades. I planted these 3 beds almost 2 years ago exactly, which means right now, if you're in a mild climate, or coming up soon if you're not in a mild winter climate, it's going to be time for you. So this is the perfect time to kind of take you through this. So first of all, when I planted these 2 years ago, I planted crowns and not seeds. Crowns are basically the top and roots of about a 1-year-old plant. The reason you might want to get crowns over seeds is if you're impatient like I am, crowns only take 2 years until you can harvest, and seeds take about 3. Now, it's not that seeds take 3 years to come up. This is not your typical vegetable. Like I said, this is a perennial, and so you have to let that root system get established, and the only way to do that is let it grow through a couple of seasons so it brings in the sunlight, puts the energy into the roots, and each year more and more sprouts are going to come up in the springtime. So starting from seed, you got to allow that extra year that you don't have to allow for in crowns. So I highly recommend crowns. They're a little more expensive than seeds, but you get them faster, and to me, it's just more satisfying. So if you're going to do seeds, plant them in a row, just according to the seed packet, and then let them grow for 3 years. If you're going to do crowns, there's a special way to do it. So first of all, you're going to soak the crowns in water for about 45 minutes just to rehydrate them. They've been sitting on the shelf or in storage for who knows how long, and you just want to get them back to that plump, healthy looking root system. Then you're going to dig a trench about 12 inches deep and 12 inches wide. Now, if you're starting in a new raised bed like I did, then I didn't have to dig down, I had to build up. Either way, at the bottom of the trench or the bottom of a new raised bed, if it's in a raised bed, put a little raised bed mix in the bottom, and then you want to build a mound that runs the length of the row that you're going to be planting these in. And you want to mound that up about 6 inches tall off of the bottom of the trench or raised bed. Now, before I get into actual planting, we need to talk about the types of asparagus. If you live where it gets cold in the winter and it freezes, you have snow, then you can grow pretty much any type of asparagus you can find. Here in Southern California, parts of the South that do not get winter cold like that, you might get a few frosts here and there, but nothing like no real winter cold. Then you need to grow UC 157. And that is a variety that was developed for our particular type of climate. It does not need a freezing winter. Now, when you're looking for either crowns or seeds of any type, you want to look for hybrids. If you don't get a hybrid, typically you're going to get a lot more female seeds or crowns than male. That's just the way it works. And the females tend to put more energy into making berries and seeds than they do into the root system. Plus, female sprouts are going to end up being not as tender. They're going to be more fibrous. So go for hybrids, and you're going to get mostly males. Now, yes, for hybrids, you can't save the seed and then have them come true the next time you want to plant. But like I said, these last for 30 years. They'll be producing for you for 30 years. So I'm not real worried about saving the seeds right now. So when I planted these, I put a mound in the bottom, 6 inches tall, running the length of the raised bed. And then what you want to do is place the crowns straddling the mound with the crowns on top and the roots hanging down the sides, kind of like little octopuses sitting on a hill. Then backfill the trench with soil until the crowns are about 1 inch under the soil. That's going to leave about 3 inches on top of the soil in the trench. As these sprouts start to come up and as they grow, fill in the soil as they grow. Don't cover them up, but just kind of fill them as they grow until the soil is level and the trench is now no longer there. Then your only job is to keep them moist at all times. Asparagus do not like to dry out. This is ridiculous. Felcos for this. I don't have long pruning shears, but I just remembered I do have electric shears. That's how you do it. So the first year, don't harvest anything. And it's so tempting because you see those little shoots coming out of the ground that look just like the asparagus you get at the store. But don't do it because, like I said, you want to let them grow into these big green frond things. These aren't green right now, but they were in the summer. And it's just going to be this airy, green, ferny bush. And they'll keep producing more sprouts. They'll keep coming up all summer long. And they're collecting all that sunlight and putting it right down into that root system that's going to feed you for decades. Now, the second spring, if you must, you can cut off a few just to try them, just to say you ate some asparagus that you grew. Let the rest keep on going. Now, that third spring, which it is for me right now, if you grew from crowns, you can start harvesting. If you grew from seed, you gotta let one more year go by. And then in the late fall and winter, every year, you wanna do what I'm doing right now and cut all of this previous year's growth right down to an inch or so from the ground. This is what it's gonna look like once you've cut it down. Now, if you're in a colder climate, there's probably no green left on it. It probably just cut down in like dry sticks. If you have drip irrigation, now's a great time because you can actually see it, to turn it on and inspect it and make sure it's working properly. The only thing left to do now is top the beds up with a couple inches of raised bed mix or compost, and you can go ahead and cover the stems and crowns completely. So now, after all this waiting, in a month or two, I'm finally going to be able to harvest my own asparagus. There aren't very many perennial vegetables that you can grow from year to year, especially that will feed you for decades, especially in a cold winter climate. But asparagus is one of those. Bare root planting, like asparagus crowns, can only be done at a certain time of year, and it depends where you live. Now, right here in Southern California, in this southern zone, January is the month to do it. As you go north, you'll probably be February, March, maybe April. But your local garden centers will have things in stock for you whenever that time is right. And it's really the best way to grow because they start out bare root, and bare root trees, in my opinion, they have every advantage, maybe even more, of potted trees. So if you're planting fruit trees like I'm doing in the next week or so, I buy them bare root in January. They're way cheaper than potted trees, and after a few months they take off and probably surpass potted trees because potted trees are used to growing in a pot. They're used to the soil it's in. It's a whole different story with bare root. You put them in the ground, they're immediately getting used to that soil. They're putting out all new roots, and they just seem to grow better. So yesterday I went to the nursery I get my bare root trees from, and I brought home 13 trees. Now, I wasn't quite ready, but they had already sold out of some of the ones I wanted, so I wanted to make sure that I got these. And they're bare root, so as long as they stay in the wet wood shavings that they came in, I've got a few days to be able to do this. So right now I have them under an old sheet on the shady side of the house. Took the sheet off so you could see them. So I have those 13. I'll go through the varieties that I got and what those are in just a minute. I also have 3 more here in pots that I got last year and put in pots. We've got a burgundy plum, a Fuji apple, and a Florida Prince peach. And then I also have 2 bare root almond trees, which are coming in the mail. So that will be 18 total. Plus I'll be doing some citrus, and I really would like to get a cherimoya tree That's a tropical fruit. It's hard to describe if you've never had one. It's kind of a custardy, creamy texture, almost like ice cream if ice cream was still that texture when it wasn't cold. And it has the flavor of like a tropical smoothie. Anyway, the orchard is not quite ready yet for planting. We got a lot of junk to remove. I've got to make now 13, 14, 15, 16 gopher baskets. That's always a chore that I hate, that I can't stand gophers because of that, because they tear up everything if I don't do them. So let me take you back over here and show you what trees I just got. All right, in no particular order, we've got a Braeburn apple. We've got a Gordon apple. We've got a King David apple, which there's no picture there. We've got a Snow Queen white nectarine, Arctic Star white nectarine, Royal Crimson cherry, Mini Royal cherry, Florida Home pear, Santa Rosa plum, Hood European pear, Satsuma plum, Mid Pride peach, May Pride peach, and Red Baron peach. So when you're planting a home orchard, and I'm actually going to do a whole home orchard video, it's a different way of planting things than with a commercial type orchard. First of all, you can plant them much closer together. Second, you want to make sure that you have early, mid, and late varieties. So I tried to choose in everything that I got, especially peaches, nectarines, plums, I chose early, mid, and late varieties. So instead of just having a whole glut of peaches all at one time, I'll be able to harvest them from May through August. I'll go through the rest of the tips on home orchards and bare root planting fruit trees on that video. If you want to jumpstart, I did a video a couple years ago. I'll put a link to that down in the video description. Oh, I got to show you something else. Since we've been talking about fruit, I showed you before all of my Monsterra deliciosas are fruiting, like big time fruiting. Like look, there's 4 just right there. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and number 16 is the one that started before all the others. And you can see it's a lot bigger around. It's fatter, and the scales are a lot more defined. So if you take a look at the scales on that one compared to that one, well, maybe not in the camera, but in real life it is. Anyway, I'm expecting that this, within a month or so, the scales are going to start to fall off here at the bottom. At that point, I can cut this from the plant. And it's a dangerous fruit if you don't know how to eat it. There are a lot of oxalates in the unripened portion of fruit. So you don't pull off those scales. They fall off naturally. You set it on a plate in your house, and it'll ripen about 1 inch per day. And once the scales fall off, you can eat that part. Just don't eat the part that's not. Don't peel the scales off, because that will actually sting your mouth. It will feel like fiberglass when you're swallowing it. It's not good. However, when you get it ripe, it's one of the most delicious fruits that you can imagine. Think of a creamy strawberry, banana, pineapple. It's good stuff.